Kumlan and Ablak Gemara. Today's daf is Afuk Lamed Dalit. So the last thing we learned was an incident of Yonus ben Azil, where somebody didn't want his children to inherit him, so he bequested the entire inheritance to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It's Rabbi Yonus ben Azil, and Rabbi Yonus ben Azil then decided to proportion the Yerusha, or the gift that he received, in three parts, and one of them he returned actually to the children of that person. And Shammai challenged him. He gave it to you with the unwritten condition that you don't give it to his children. So, and we explained that Jens ben Azil said, if that's the case, then you have to believe that my gift was a mistake, and therefore forget about what I gave to his children. Whatever I gave to Hegdish, whatever I sold, should all unravel and should be returned. And you agree it doesn't. Shammai's mistake, was, or his error was, that he compared it to the case of Matnas Beis Chayden, which we lived in Gemara Nedarim, where a son banned his father from ever having any benefit from him, and he had a chasna to make, so he gave it to a friend, and he said, I'm giving this to you only so that my father, it should become yours, but only so my father should be able to participate in the wedding. And that person went ahead and got angry, he's being used, so he just said, you know what, I'm consecrating the entire wedding. And this, we said he had no right to do that, because because somebody gave him for it. He gave him for it to be a wedding so my father can join. And the Gemara concluded that any matana that isn't full-hearted, that is not like that he can't, for example, make it hegdish, is not a valid matana. So we asked all the Rishonim they want to understand. So how is it that a matana manas lahachzir? I give someone a little bit of esrog and I say I'm giving this. It's conditional that you return it to me. And matana manas lahachzir is a valid matana. That person can make it hegdish. So how is it a valid matana? So we have a number of answers. In fact, the Yisrael is an argument between the Russian Rishonim. The Tzasachoshin explains, I think in Aleph, where he explains what's the idea of matana lahachzir. There's two ways of understanding it. One way is the matana is forever. I can't make a matana for a short time. Otherwise, it's no different than a loan. What's the difference? As the other Rishonim ask, what's the difference between a loan and a matana lahachzir? Same thing. I give it to you for a certain amount of time. You got to get back to me. Yet matana lahachzir is considered yours during that time, and shayol is not really yours. A lulav hashol is no good. A bar of lulav is no good. So some Rishonim hold a matana lahachzir. I gave it to you forever, but there's a rider there. There's a condition there that you need to give it back to me, and I have to make a new kinyan to make it mine again. But if you don't give it back to me, then all along was never a matana in the first place. That's the pshat matana lahachzir. Other Rishonim hold no, that it's part of the deal. That not I don't have to make a new kinyan when I get it back. I gave it to you for 10 minutes, let's say, or I gave it to you, did your mitzvah. Once you did your mitzvah, automatically becomes back mine. So they gave also to giving a child a little esrog, and whether you can do a matana lahachzir there or not. Because if it's automatic, then why can't you give a little bit as a child? Then the Gemara says there in Sukkah, don't give it to a child. Why not? It's automatically mine. So the Rishonim talk about that. Anyway, so one pshat is that the Ravid holds taka that you could, if I give it to Hafza, you could make it hegdish, and I actually have to redeem it to take it out of hegdish. So it's a valid matana. Others say you can make it hegdish the time period that you have it, while you have balabatushkeit. But let's say till you do your mitzvah. So while you're doing the mitzvah, or till once I gave it to you for an hour, during that hour you can make it hegdish. Yes, the moment, because it's no longer yours. The moment is the hour is over, automatically mine. Whether you have to be opinion or not is a discussion. But it's automatic. We had a deal of hegdish l'zman in the Durham as well. It goes automatically. It comes back to me. The other Rishonim learn that's not what the Gemara means at all. The Gemara doesn't mean it has to actually be able to become hegdish. The Gemara means it has to be genuine. And we're just illustrating that wedding ceremony, or all the food that you gave to your friend wasn't genuine. You didn't want him to have it. You just wanted to find a ruse of how to get your father to participate without breaching this neder that you made. So the Gemara uses an example, since that person cannot make hegdish, it's not genuine. But if I give you a matana lahachzir, it's a genuine matana, but I want it back afterwards. But b'shas ma'is, while you have it, I taka want it to be yours, and all you should fulfill your mitzvah. Then it doesn't matter if you can make it hegdish or not. That is not a criteria of the halacha that was just approved in that particular case as to whether the giving or transferring of the meal to that person was a genuine gift or was just a ruse. Okay, so now the Gemara mentioned Yonus ben Azil. The Gemara brings here the same Gemara we had in Masechta Sukkah. The Gemara says, Kuf Lamed Daled Amid Aleph, by the two dots, right in the middle of the page. Last word of the line is Tanu. Hill had 80 Talmidim, Shloishim, and 30 of them, Riyim, Shatisha, Shalein, Shchinik, Moshe Rabbeinu. 30 of them were such giants that they were suited that the Shechina should rest in them. But the generation wasn't the row, so it didn't happen. Shloishim, and Riyim, Shatamlam, Chamish Benun, and 30 of them were suitable that the sun should rest like Bashir Benun. Shemesh begiven doim, begiven and rest. But the truth of the matter, Moshe Rabbeinu happened as well. But since they're not comparable with Moshe Rabbeinu, we're comparing them to Yeshua ben Nun. Just talking about Yeshua ben Nun. First of all, we say that it's Bidun and Ben Nun because the two dots that was added was taken away to make the Yud. We took the Yud from Sarai. We'll see in the Gemara. Took the Yud from Sarai, made it Yeshua, and made a Shva. Where did those two Nukudas come from? From the Ben. So it became Bin Nun. But there's a fascinating medrash that Yeshua's father had a dream that one day his son will strangle him. Will strangle him, kill him. So Yeshua's father got very scared and he sent him away in the water, or put him in the water, and then, if I remember correctly, some fish swallowed him up and tossed him ashore. This is Yeshua. And he started working for this government, and he became the executioner. And his father committed a crime that the sentence was he should be executed. And therefore, Yeshua, his father, executed him. So the dream came true. And that's why it's called Yeshua ben Nun, the son of a fish. Not Nun, the name of a person, but Nun, the son of a fish. That's the name. Medish, that's what it says. Others have other versions. Okay, so now, Yeshua ben Esrim Benanim, there were 20 that were average. Godel Shibikulam Yonis ben Azil, and Cotton Shibikulam Yechab ben Zakkai. The youngest ones are Yechab ben Zakkai. Big, yes, we'll see in a minute. Okay, what does Cotton mean as it stands now? You prima facie, it sounds like he knew the least. He was the lowest level. And what did he know? There's nothing he left behind in learning. The Kufis and working out the new month, calculating the new month, the analogies of launderers and the analogies of foxes, which helps to give you an insight and understanding. Then we had Rameh knew a few Mishalim. Mishalim to give 3,000 Mishalim. Rameh had 3. We'll learn a longer Rashi later on. Sichas Shadim, the talk of the demons. The Sichas the Kolum, the talk of the palm trees. What in the world is Sichas the Kolum? What the world? So Rashbam says here, Sichas the Kolum does not mean that the palm trees talk to each other. Rashbam says that Sichas the Kolum means what people say about palm trees. For example, where it's better to grow, where it grows more dates, or the quality and so on. He knew exactly everything he used to know about palm trees. Even though Pashto Pshat is not that way. Pashto Pshat is Sichas the Kolum, which is a little bit like Rashi and Sukkah. Fascinating Ritva. The Ritva brings here in the name of Rabbi Hai Goyen. Rabbi Hai Goyen writes that in his time, there lived a person, gives a name, I don't remember the name. So in this time, there lived a person who knew the language of palm trees. And what is it? When the leaves and the branches were waving back and forth, but not on a windy day. If it was not a windy day and the branches moved back and forth, they were talking to each other, whispering to each other, and he understood the language. So she clearly from the rich of high going, it's nothing to do with people talking about palm trees, the palm trees themselves. And whatever it is, when it moved when there was no wind. And he said, we don't know exactly what that is. Interesting. The Sichas Malach Hasharis and the language and the talk of Malachim. The double godel, the double cotton. They knew big things and small things. What's double godel? Ma'aseh Mekaveh. What's double cotton? Havoyas Dabai V'Rabba. The debates and disputes between Abai and Rabba, which means that the Tanoim already, when incorporated everything that we have in the Gemara in the few words in the Mishnah already included. The famous Ma'aseh Mekaveh Mishnah, I went to the Alter Rebbe, he wanted to know. What's the difference Achreinim and Rishonim? We say the Shema is so great. Look, the Shema wrote a paragraph. The Achreinim go pages and pages and pages. So obviously, Achreinim are much greater than the Rishonim. So if I remember correctly, Alter Rebbe then said to him, "Let's learn the Gemara together." And he asked him a question of the Gemara that they were learning, and Mekev's Mishnah didn't know. And Alter Rebbe gave him 18 or 36 answers on that question. And then he said, "Now let's go to the Rashba." We went to the Rashba, which is only a few lines, and Alter Rebbe showed him how this Rashba in a few lines answered all the answers that Dr. Rebbe said. All 18 answers were included in these few words. He said, by the Rishonim was lichtik. The Chatchila saw the straight path. We go through all the side roads, so we have to figure out how to get back to the main road. That's why it's so long. And you see right here that the Tanoim, Rech Mazakai, already included the Havayas of Baibura. I mean, the Ram has a little different shot in this. Yeah, that's the same. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's all included. Yeah. L'kayim mashinema, and this is fulfilled. It says, "Hanchel oy vayesh betzroisem amali." I will fill their treasures. Okay, now before we go to weiter, fascinating machlekes between the Kesef Mishnah or the Rambam and the Ravid. The Rambam in Hilchos Mamrim, the whole Rambam there talks about that once a bezin makes a takana, you cannot later on change it unless the godul men if it's takana. Godul men b'chacham. And the Ravid asks a question, what are you talking about? It says that that they used to debate takana that within a day of the Shalayim, you should bring the first new fruit. Don't redeem it. You got to bring it to the Shalayim to be ma'ata the streets, to pay the same, make it look beautiful, parades and everything else. Then Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came along later because he was after Churban, and he made all the takanas after Churban. He said, "Let's stop that. Why should we decorate a Shalayim for the goyim? There's no base on Mikdash anymore. Why should we make it nice for pretty Shalayim for the goyim?" So the Ravid says, you see from here, a later generation can come and overturn. Are you going to argue with me? Maybe it's Godel Men Chachaminion, but the Gemara here says that Kotner Shibikulim. He was the lowest level of 80 Talmidim of Hill, and yet he came along and turned around. That's what the Ravid says. The Kesef Mishnah comes along and says, "Who told you that cotton?" And said, I'm paraphrasing. Then why was Rabbi Chazaki the next leader of Klal Yisrael? If he was a cotton Shibakul, it should be Yonah Azil, it should have been one of the others, 79. Why Punkt Yechim Zaka? He said, that's not shot at all. Cotton Shibakulim, when it came to these things, Misholas, Kaipsi, Misholas, Shoal, and things which are extraneous to learning, okay, he was cotton Shibakulim. But when it came to Torah, of course he was God Shibakulim, that's what became the leader. But the Ravid clearly doesn't learn that way. And the Lechem Mishnah who argues, if I remember correctly, the Kesef Mishnah says also it's not shot. In other words, just because someone is the Rav Haroshi or the leader doesn't mean he's the biggest Hamachach. Doesn't mean at all the biggest Hamachach. We even had the Gemara that who you should marry. You should marry the biggest Hamachach, otherwise marry Godel Hadoid. So Godel Hadoid is nothing to do with being the biggest Hamachach. Leadership qualities is a totally different area than that. So that group is the machlekes between the Ravid and the Rambam. Was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Kotner Shebekulim literally? Well, like the Kesef Mishnah says, and these inyanim here, which are not so relevant to learning. Anyway, continue weiter. This is Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Imagine the God of Shukul. Amru Allah ben Azil. So what did he do? What could be greater than Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai? Every bird flying above got burnt. So the Shami already asked, so that's Yenis ben Azil. What was Hill? What could be greater than that? So the Shami answers, by Yenis ben Azil was only those birds that were within his 4 amos. And Hill was birds even beyond 4 amos. In Chassidus, it says that Yenis ben Azil, I remember where I saw this, that Yenis ben Azil burnt the birds. When the Hill learned, no birds got burnt. They became part of the Torah themselves. In other words, breaking somebody is not as great as transforming them, Iskapia versus Hapcha, turning them around and making them in a different way they go together. And the famous difference, 2 different Talmidim, how they learn the Gemara. But basically in the Chassidish world, they would learn, wow, that the Kedusha is so strong that the bird, Gashmi, should feel the Kedusha. And in the Yeshivish world, in the Lamdish world, they would say, "Nu, are you chayiv for hezek or not? Since you learned and you caused the bird to die, are you chayiv al samazik because other mood loilam or not?" Interesting. Like the Mishnah, we continue to learn all about family and about Yerusha distribution. If somebody says, "Zebni, this is my son," Neman, he is believed. What believed in what way? We'll soon see. Obviously, you think to my Yerusha, Sugi Yerusha. This is my son, he's believed. Ze Achi, if one of the brothers say, "This is our brother," Ein Neman. The other brothers don't have to follow along. We never heard from our father we had another brother. We don't believe him. But the brother who claims, so you have 2 brothers, Reuben and Shimon. And you have Reuben and Shimon. And there were 3 properties. So each one took 1.5 properties. Then Shimon says, "Oh, that Levi there is our brother." Reuben, are we talking about? As far as I know, he's not a brother. So Reuben keeps 1.5 properties. Shimon now claims that he has a brother. So how much does he have? He has to give to Levi. What the part of the Yerusha that belongs to Levi, which is only the half field. Even though each one's entitled to a field, but half of it was taken by Reuben. And Reuben said, I don't believe you, my brother. Shimon says, you are my brother. So Shimon has to give to Levi the part that Shimon took that should have gone to Levi that Shimon has, which is half a field. The half field goes to Levi. So he takes the portion that Shimon has that belongs to Levi. Mace, what happens if Levi dies? Reuben can't say, okay, I want to have, he's my brother, give me a piece. No, no. The one who gave him is the one who takes it back. So Shimon takes back that half a field that he gave to Levi. What about Nafal and Chasim Makamacher? Levi suddenly had an inheritance from somewhere else and he died. Then all the brothers Yashim, because Shimon, you claim he's your brother. If you're right that he's your brother, you're getting a share. So I'm also entitled to a share because he's your brother, he's my brother. So you can't take from me, but I can take from him. Says the Gemara. What do you mean believe? In what ways he believe? Two things. First of all, that if father said this is his son, that means he's now a Yiddish. Number one. Number two, they had no children. We had no chazaka. Was associating about it. We didn't know he had any brothers, or he did have brothers, and he had brothers, so we thought that she'll be a yibum. And now suddenly he said, "This is our son," and he's believed, and he's dying. She does not have to marry his brother. So let's see what's going on. So, first of all, the Yosha, if the Chiddush the mission is that what the father said, this our son believed, Pshita surely is believed. What's the Chiddush? What's the Pshita? The Pshita is if a guy says this is our son, he has a migli. If he's calling him his son because he wants to give him a part of the Yerusha, he can give it to him as a gift. So it's a Pshita. Now, but if now, what's saying? Isn't there a difference? If he says he is our son, if he says that I'll give it to him as a gift, I can only give him what I have up to this moment, not beyond. But if he says he's our son, then even if the guy lives another 10 years and he buys new properties, the guy will get a chelik. So therefore, what's a pshita? There's a big difference. If he gives him a ton of whatever I had that day is what he gets, and if I call him a Yiddish, whatever I have even beyond that day, he will get. So the Bam says that no. If he says Ebony, why tak is he believed? Why is he believed that it's our son? You know why he's believed? Because there's a migun. If he wants, you can give him as a matana. So if he would have given him a matana, you can only give him what you have till that point. So even though he said this is our son, he only gets a Yerusha up to that point and not beyond. I was looking more faded before by the Pchayde. We learned from the word Yakir that, and we asked what needs word Yakir for. I can give it to him a ton anyway if I want to. So the Yakir tell you that anything beyond that point, he also gets a Pchayde. Or if he's a Geisis and not shy to give anything out, he gets. So Rajman there's a big difference between the case of Pchayde and this case. In the case of Pchayde, we know for sure he's a son. Everyone knows he's a son. Question is he the firstborn or not? It's more like a bidur. And therefore, we'll give him as a Pchayde up to the point he passes away. But in our case here, we bechlal don't know he's a son. It's not a bitter. This is creating a new. He's taking a chelik of the Yerusha away from the other brothers. It's not a bitter. This is a whole new panem. Why should he be believed? Nothing to do with Yakir. This is migui. Migui. Then he's only believed to that point. That's what Rashbam and a number of Rishonim hold. Other Rishonim find that they said it's impossible. If a father comes along and says, "This is my son," we're not going to give him the Yerusha only the Yerusha to that point and not beyond. Of course, you do give him beyond. And therefore they learn different shot. Pshita is that it's a Mefesh Mishnah elsewhere. What do I need our Mishnah to tell you? And they argue in halacha. It's a very important halacha. They say that if a father said this is our son, which we didn't know, he's entitled to Yerusha like a Yiddish till the day he passed away, whatever he had. Anyway, that can be what our Mishnah is out trying to thrust of our Mishnah. So Lifta is Ishtam Yibum meets the clay. You know what the Mishnah is? Tell you that he's part of Yibum. It says in Kedushin, Misha Amar B'Shas Misos. If a guy said while he's dying, Yesh Li Bonim, the guy while he's dying says, I want you to know that I have sons. And therefore, she is exempt from Yibum. Neman, he is believed. He says, Yesh Li Achim. We thought that she's free. And then suddenly, on his deathbed, he said, well, guys, I have a younger brother. Or I have an older brother. I have a brother. And therefore, you're now stuck. Ain't an Eman, he's not believed. So we see clearly from here, Yeshli Ben, as far as it's exempt the Yibum, his mutter is already a Mishnah Kedushin. What do we need our Mishnah here? So what's our Mishnah telling us that we don't know already from Kedushin? So the Gemara, no, it's a big difference. Over there is talking about we didn't know he had any brothers. In that case, you know, your brother didn't have any sons. So she's potter. It's like we know nothing. So it's like a svek. First of all, who said there were any brothers? When the husband dies, you know nothing about the family. She claims that she's free. First of all, who said he had any brothers? And even if he had brothers, maybe he also had sons. So svek is a man like she's mutter, and therefore, if the husband comes along and says, "But I have sons," he's believed because what he's saying is consonant or consistent with the chazaka. The chazaka says she's a free woman, and he says yeshli banim, but she's a free woman. But if he says yeshli achim, it's going against the chazaka. The chazaka was till this moment that she's a free woman. Comes along mitamo and he says you should not have a brother. You're going against the chazaka. That you're not believed. That's what we know from there. Yeah, Hassam over there, we didn't have a brother, and he wants to create a problem. Here the chiddush is, we had a chazaka that he had a brother all the time. I mean, she was us. Now he comes along and says, Yeshli Ben. And the chiddush is that he's believed. Why taka? And what? And she's exempt. Why taka she believed? Because it's a migli. It's a migli. If he wants, he can give a divorce right now. And she'd be potter from marrying anybody, his brothers. So since he has a migli of giving a divorce right now, he is believed to say that I have a son. Even though it's against migli, it's against the chazaka. Right? It's a migli against chazaka. He is believed. The Rashbam says, Dafke, there's a chazaka that he had brothers. If there was Adam that he had brothers, it might be different. Then maybe Taka, he couldn't just come along and say Yeshli Ben. The migli couldn't go against the Adam. And the Kivegger very interesting explains why. Yeah, but the migli is if he wants to give her a divorce right now. And he's not going against the chazaka. The chazaka says he had brothers. He's not saying I don't have brothers. He's saying I have a son. The migli is not against chazaka. The migli is against the outcome of the chazaka. The outcome is till now we thought that she is stuck. If he dies, she has to marry. And now the outcome is she doesn't. So it's different than normally when we say the migli is against the Adam. It's not really against the Adam. In fact, Moshe Shem hold even though Adam are brothers, he still believes. It's the Rashbam who comes along and makes this distinction between the migli is against Chazak or Adam that Kivega tries to explain what's going on over there. Very interesting, but we don't have time now. Take my right there. Rabbi Yosef says in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, why talk if he said this is my son? He's believed. You know why? Because if the husband if a husband comes along and says, I divorced my wife, he's believed. Now, why if a husband says divorced his wife, believe? First of all, where does it say that? We had a little bit in the Gemara in the Durham, there he had also, if a woman says to a husband, because the Chazaki doesn't have the chutzpah, if a husband says, I divorced her already in the past, he's believed. Why is he believed? Because he has a migli. If he wants, he can divorce her right now. So, and therefore, since he has this migli, if he divorce right, saying he believes Yeshli Ben, and therefore she's potter for marrying my brother because of migli. If he wants, he can give a divorce right now. She doesn't have to marry her brother. Even though if he gives a divorce right now, in a way it's hurting her because she cannot marry a kohen. A divorcee cannot marry a kohen. If she outlives her husband, she's an almanish, and she ends up marrying the brother, and the brother dies, she could marry a kohen. So whenever we say migli, if the tiny you could have said in a way hurts you, is not really a taina, but nevertheless the chances of that are far less than so at least she has a big pool of people she can marry other than being stuck with one brother, and one day she might be to marry Kohen is not considered a redeeming factor. Rabbi said, I don't understand. Morei da Avram, the Eibishter, the God from Avram, totally Tanya but Tanya. Rashbam explains very nicely. Rabbi Yosef was sick and he didn't remember exactly, and he heard things a lot. He learned Rabbi Yudus, and he heard things when he was well, and then later on when he became blind and he started chazering it, and he was listening to what he was saying, he said, no, couldn't be that my Rebbe said that. Couldn't be, I must be remembering it wrong, because totally. In other words, he's saying, why you believe b'ni? Because the husband believed to say Gerash Dishi. First of all, there's no such thing in any Mishnah. No, and what's the reason why a husband believed? Because he has a migli, he could have divorced right now. So what Rabbi should have said is, why does our Mishnah say that the father or the husband believed to say we have a son? Because he has a migli, he could have divorced her. Not because of some another halacha, which that other halacha, which the Mishnah is based on another din, go directly to this other din. So it must be, that's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda said. Why why is the father believe to say this is my son? Because he could have divorced her right now if he wants to. Now that you tell me we have the principle of Hoyle, he could do something right now about it, so we believe him. Is if a man says, I divorce now, Rabbi Yehuda's second din that I thought was his first din comes out. If a man says, I divorce my wife, Neman. Why? The guy, she can divorce it right now. He also, Rabbi Yitzchak, in other words, even about the past tense, not I divorced her this minute. I divorced her a month ago. Rabbi Yitzchak says, he's believed because he has a migu. If he wanted, he could have said, he can divorce her right now. Comes along, Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef, is the name of Yechel, and Baal Shem Megirash Ishti, ain't a Neman. Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef says, if a husband said, I divorced a long time ago, doesn't believe. He's not believe. Why? He blew with his hand. That hoyel that Rabbi Yosef said that since he could divorce her right now, we're believed about an event that happened a month ago, is dissipated or flew away. Why? Because the migui is for right now. How is that going to help for yesterday? The husband says, I divorced her yesterday, and the migui can divorce her right now. Okay? If you say you divorced her right now, the migui could done it. But what's it do yesterday? You can't divorce her yesterday again. There's no migui for yesterday. That's Rabbi Yosef. And comes along Rabbi Yechanan or Rabbi Yitzchak by Rabbi Yechanan, he can't do that. So it's not so, but Rabbi Chia bar Ovin says Rabbi Yechanan, Baal Shom Gerash Edition Nemi is believed, like Rabbi Yosef said. Like Kashe kan le mafre kan le habo. There's a difference between the mafre and habo. In other words, if the there's a difference if we talk about yesterday or we talk about tomorrow. When the husband talks about tomorrow and he says, I divorced her, then it's all right. For example, if she was Mazana and there's a case coming up that you can get the age and everything else, and the husband says, I divorced her a week before then, there's no migu that he could have divorced her because that migu is for today, not for back then. So he's not believed. Mash Ein, if he said, Stam, I divorced my wife, or I divorced her today this morning. Nothing, so it's not affecting any event that happened before. I divorced her this morning. Then he's believed because he wants to get divorced her this minute right now. Right? Because it's not negated to the past. Nothing happened. It's only a question. So from now on, if she could treat her like a divorced woman, a divorcee, the answer is yes. Okay, we'll believe him. So now the question comes up. Okay, you just said that if you said I divorced her a month ago, we're not going to believe him, therefore to spare her or save her from the znus because he has a miga. There's no miga back then. But what happened? He did say, I divorced her. Okay, we're not going to believe him from the Shchedish and onwards. Will we believe him from now on? So now he has a miga if he wants to get divorced right now. But he's not saying I divorced him right now. He's saying I divorced her 2 months ago. Will the miga at least help from now on? Or do we say once part of that migu doesn't work, it doesn't work at all? Me palginin de Buddha loy palginin. But do we say the part that goes before today, we don't believe. We dismiss it, no migi on. But the part from today on, since he's the migi on that part of the argument, let's believe him. Do we divide the words or not? Rav Mori one says palginin, we divide the words. Chadama loy palginin. Get in China and Sanhedrin, a lot of places, yeah. Very good. So how is it different with the Rabbi? The Rabbi said, Ish Pliny Balish, a guy comes to court with another aide and says that Yankel had relations with my wife. The din is we're going to kill Yankel, but we're not going to kill his wife because he cannot say Eidus about his wife. We'll say Palgin and Debura. So what's here we say clearly we do say Palgin, we do separate his words like 2 separate parts. So how come when it comes to the get you say that you can't, the opinion that says that if he says I divorced her 2 months ago, since the migu does not help 2 months ago, we're not going to divide it and say it'll help from now on. What's the difference? Is who va'achem is tarful lahar goy to kill that person is lahar goy v'loy lahar go. So it's more a big difference. Betrei gufe palginen, bechad gufe loy palginen. Big machlek is showing what exactly that means. So some are showing like around others learn. There's 2 different people. One is talking about the aide, and one's talking about the wife. So we can separate. It's like 2 different aides. Just because you put it in one sentence, in one story, is let's focus on the man, then we'll focus on the woman. So focusing on the man, we have 2 aides. When it comes focusing on the woman, we don't have 2 aidim. So therefore, palgin the Buddha. Over here, it's one story. You gave her a get 2 months ago. If we don't believe that he gave her a get 2 months ago, how can you believe that we get from now on? One story. So it's one person, not one story, one person, by one woman. Others say don't do what people do with stories. There's 2 different outcomes. There's a halacha regarding a man, regarding not because they're two gufim, but there's two different outcomes. Here, there's one outcome: is she a divorced woman or not? And he said he divorced her 2 months ago. So it's one story. He divorced 2 months. Why would he be divorced today? Because of the divorce he did 2 months ago. But if you don't believe it 2 months ago, what are you going to believe about today? That's what the Chad Gufa means. Even though there's trust and a lot of here and the Rama, they want to learn that we actually do believe in the Mafreya. We do believe in Mafreya because we had the Gemara Yibam and other places a concept called Biyodai. That not because of Migli, but any an eight echas believes it's Chazik Asura because it's Biyodai. Since it's Biyodai to do something about it, you have a certain balabatchka, just have smites, all this smites. You have a certain balabatchka ownership that gives you the right or credibility. And therefore, the Mafrei, you also believe, not because I could give a get, and therefore we believe you because as if you gave a get now. That's not what the other opinion is, that we believe because you believe you. And that's why it seems that the Ram holds that Mafrei is believed. Just one quick story. Based on this story we just learned. A person was dying. What's the story with your wife? Is she a Yavama or is she a free woman? He said, she can marry a Kohen God. Rabba says, Rabba, I'll get back to that second. That makes sense. Because even if nobody's saying, no brothers, no children, or whatever, or children, no problem. But if she's an almana, can't marry a Kohen Gadol. She's a bu'ula, she can't marry a Kohen Gadol. What's he talking about here? So one is just like Alasha Guzma. I'm not talking about the Isa of Kohuni, I'm just saying that she's a free woman. Other the same, and that goes word kind of rabbi, just goes word kohen. That she can marry a kohen, but it's hard to say marry a kohen. Can't marry a kohen either. Why do you believe when what we just learned for? Why do you believe him when he says that that we have, let's say, children? She's potter. Why do you believe? A miga can give a divorce. If the only basis is a miga divorce, then a divorcee can't marry a kohen. So this miga won't help for a kohen. So you can't marry a kohen at all. You stop talking. But other Rishonim learn shot here that don't do with this at all. He said we never lived together. She's a psula still. I made a tonight. So it happens we'll live together. She never filled it tonight. We were never married, so she can marry a kohen gadol literally, because she's not a bula. She's a psula, and she was never married. Anyway, Omar is another. My neighbor, what's the problem? She's a free woman. So the Gemara, he says, I divorced my wife to believe. And the reason is, because he wants to get divorced right now. So therefore, we believe if he says that she's a free woman, he can divorce her. That is. So if you believe. But we bring a question. If he says I divorced my wife, he's not believed. Yeah, and what this guy, we're learning right now, what this guy actually said is, I divorced him. He's not saying I had sons. That's not what we're interpreting his words. We're interpreting his words when he said, even though you used the word kohen, interesting, we're going to interpret his words. What he meant was, I gave her a divorce, she's a free woman. And he just stopped talking. I gave her a divorce. So if he gave her a divorce, why is he believed? Because he wants to get a divorce right now. And you brought one of you, Rabbi Yechon, that even though he said he gave a divorce a month ago, we believe right before he died. But we had another opinion that says we don't believe even Mekano Lahaba. On Malay, so Rabbi said back to Abaya, but the Lav mi loishaninu. We answered before already. Kan Mafre, Kan Lahaba. If you talk about what happened yesterday, we don't believe, but we'll take what he said that yesterday he divorced, and we'll believe from now on. So Rabbi said to him, Bashanuya, Nakim, and Ismach. You can rely when it comes to halacha. Remember just a few days ago how important it is when it comes to halacha. You can't just in learning you can give answers, but that's not necessarily the halacha. So Bashanuya, Nakim, and Ismach. We can rely on it and therefore free this woman and let her marry him as she wants. Rabbi was so stringent on this woman. What can I do? So we have to worry what the Abai just said, and she cannot get married because maybe there's a son out there, maybe there's a brother out there somewhere. Do our research. So Abai made her an aguna, and Rabbi followed along. Okay, we continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.